By the end of that afternoon, the YouTuber had turned off his camera, walked to his car, and sat alone in silence for a very long time. But to understand why, we need to go back to the moment he handed a homeless man a fake bill. By the end of that afternoon, the YouTuber had turned off his camera, walked to his car, and sat alone in silence for a very long time. But to understand why, we need to go back to the moment he handed a homeless man a fake bill. Back to a Thursday in January. Back to a street corner in Chicago where the wind came off the lake like a warning. Back to a man named Ibrahim, who had been sitting in the same spot for 3 years, and a young man with a camera who had never once in his life been surprised by anything. He was about to be. Kyle had built his channel on reactions. Other people's reactions, specifically, the more embarrassing, the more confused, the more humiliated, the better. He had pranked elderly women in supermarkets. He had given counterfeit bills to street vendors and filmed their panic. He had placed fake spiders in strangers' bags on public transport. His comment sections called him a genius. His sponsors called him every week. And Kyle, who was 25 years old and had never held a job that required him to be anywhere before noon, called himself an entertainer. That Thursday morning, scrolling through his analytics, he had decided he needed something bigger. Something that would really perform. He told his cameraman Tyler to bring the fake bills. They drove to the south side of the city. And Kyle, who believed he had seen every possible human reaction to humiliation, stepped out of his car onto a street corner where an old man sat wrapped in a worn brown coat and felt, for the first time in years, genuinely excited. Ibrahim had not always sat on that corner. There had been a time, not so long ago in years, but in another life entirely, when he had owned a small tailoring shop on the north side. When he had a wife named Fatima who made tea so strong it could wake the dead, and a son named Yusuf who wanted to be an engineer. The recession had taken the shop. A medical crisis had taken the savings. A landlord had taken the apartment. And one February morning, Ibrahim had found himself on the street with a suitcase, a prayer rug, and the letter his son had sent from back home, the one with the crayon drawing tucked inside. That had been 3 years ago. In those 3 years, Ibrahim had learned many things. He had learned which shelters were safe and which were not. He had learned that the cold of Chicago in January was a living thing with opinions. He had learned that most people who walked past him were not cruel, they were simply afraid of what he represented, the fragility of everything they had built. He did not blame them. He understood fear. What he had never learned, in 3 years on that corner, was how to stop being kind to people who did not deserve it. That, it turned out, was not something you could unlearn. Kyle approached with the easy confidence of someone who has never been told no by anything that mattered. Tyler walked 3 steps behind with the camera already rolling. Kyle crouched down to Ibrahim's level, which was itself a performance, a gesture of false equality, and smiled his channel smile. "Hey man, how are you doing today?" Ibrahim looked at him. Not with suspicion, not with hope, just with the steady, clear attention of a man who has learned to read people quickly. "I am well," Ibrahim said. "Alhamdulillah." Kyle reached into his jacket and pulled out the bill. A 50, printed on paper that looked almost right if you weren't looking carefully. He held it out. "Here you go, man. Get yourself something warm." Ibrahim looked at the bill. He did not take it immediately, which was already not part of Kyle's script. He picked it up carefully, the way you handle something you're not sure about. He turned it over. He held it up toward the pale January light. And then something happened that Kyle had filmed 47 pranks to never see. Ibrahim smiled. Not the smile of someone who has been fooled. The slow, gentle smile of someone who has understood something completely. Ibrahim lowered the bill. He looked at Kyle, not with anger, not with accusation, but with something that was almost tenderness. The tenderness of someone who has seen enough of the world to feel sorry for the people in it who haven't. "My son," he said quietly. His voice was low and accented and completely unhurried. "My son, Someone has tricked you. Kyle blinked. I'm sorry. This money, Ibrahim said, turning the bill gently in his thick fingers, it is not real. Someone has given you fake money, and you did not know. You should go, find out who did this to you. Ask for your rights back. He paused. And do not go hungry. This is important. Then Ibrahim reached into the pocket of his worn brown coat. He removed something wrapped in a piece of cloth, the half piece of bread he had been saving since morning. He held it out toward Kyle. Here, he said simply. Eat something. The cold is bad today. The camera was still rolling. Tyler, behind it, had stopped breathing. Kyle stared at the bread in Ibrahim's outstretched hand. He had been in this position before, the moment in a prank when the subject realizes what is happening. He knew exactly what came next, confusion, then anger, then the betrayed look that his audience loved, that generated the comments and the shares and the watch time. He had seen it 47 times. He did not see it now. What he saw instead was an old man in a worn coat, sitting on a cold street corner in January, who had just tried to protect him from being deceived, and was now offering him his only food. Kyle opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. Beside him, Tyler slowly lowered the camera. Not because Kyle told him to. Because some instinct, older and quieter than content strategy, told him that what was happening in front of them was not something that should be filmed. Not like this. Not for that. Stay with what just happened. Because Ibrahim did not know he was being pranked. He did not know about the channel with 2 million subscribers or the fake bill designed to humiliate him or the camera that had been rolling since before Kyle sat down. He simply saw a young man handing him something that wasn't real, and assumed, with complete and unquestioning generosity, that the young man was the victim. That someone had wronged the young man. That the young man needed protecting. In 25 years of building a career on other people's worst moments, Kyle had never once been assumed innocent. He had never once been given the benefit of the doubt. He had never once been offered bread by someone who had less than nothing. And in the 30 seconds that followed, something in Kyle that had been building for a very long time, something he would not have been able to name, quietly broke open. Ibrahim, who had not yet received any answer to his offer of bread, did what he always did when a conversation reached a silence too large for words. He reached under his arm and unrolled his prayer rug on the cold concrete beside him. Not because the prayer time had come, it hadn't yet. But because the rug was where he went when he needed to remember who he was and what he was made of. He smoothed it with his palm the way you smooth something precious. He had carried this rug for 11 years. It had been to 3 countries. It had been unrolled in airports and shelters and doorways, and once, memorably, in the waiting room of a hospital where he had sat for 6 hours not knowing whether his son would be all right. The rug had outlasted the shop and the apartment and the savings and almost everything else. It was, Ibrahim sometimes thought, the most honest thing he owned, because it asked nothing of him except that he show up, exactly as he was, and speak. Kyle sat down. Not gracefully, he simply folded, the way people do when their legs stop working on a decision their mind hasn't fully made yet. He sat on the cold concrete beside Ibrahim and put his face in his hands. Tyler stood behind them, the camera at his side, not filming. I have to tell you something, Kyle said. His voice was different. The channel voice was gone, the practiced warmth, the performed casualness. What was left was just a voice. Young and uncertain and not particularly impressive. The money was fake. I knew it was fake. I gave it to you on purpose. He paused. There's a camera. We have a channel. We film people's reactions when we prank them. Silence. The city moved around them, a bus, voices, the wind. Ibrahim was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I know. Kyle looked up. You knew? Not at first, Ibrahim said. But when you did not laugh, I understood. Another pause. Why did you not laugh? Kyle had no answer. Because he had sat down 47 times and laughed every time. And this time, for reasons he could not yet articulate, laughing had simply not been available to him. Ibrahim looked at the photograph Kyle had not asked to see, because Ibrahim had not shown it. The photograph existed only in Ibrahim's memory, the way the most important things do. But he spoke of it anyway. He told Kyle about the shop. About Fatima's tea. About Yusuf, who was 23 now and studying engineering in a city Ibrahim could not afford to visit. He spoke without self-pity, not because he didn't feel the weight of what had happened to him, but because he had long ago made a decision about which parts of his story he would let define him. I have lost many things, Ibrahim said. My shop. My home. My country, in a way. But I have not lost, he touched his chest, briefly, this. What is inside here? And this, he gestured to the prayer rug beside him. These two things. No one has taken them. No one can. Kyle was looking at him now the way people look at something they have no category for. How? He said finally. Just that. How? Ibrahim almost smiled. You pray, he said simply. You give what you have. Even when it is only bread. Especially when it is only bread. Because the giving is not about the bread. Kyle stood up slowly. He looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at him. Neither of them said anything. Kyle reached over and pressed the button on the side of the camera that stopped the recording. Not for the edit. Not to protect the content. Simply because some moments are not content. He reached into his jacket, the real jacket, not the prop one, and took out his actual wallet. He placed everything in it on the prayer rug in front of Ibrahim. Ibrahim looked at it. Then he looked at Kyle. This is real? He asked. Kyle almost laughed. It was the closest he had come to laughing all afternoon, and it felt completely different from the laugh he had arrived with. Yes, he said. This is real. He walked back to the car. He got in. He sat in the driver's seat and did not start the engine for a long time. Tyler got in beside him and also said nothing. Through the windshield, they could see Ibrahim on his corner, folding the money carefully into his coat pocket, then smoothing his prayer rug, then beginning to pray, unhurried, complete, as if the afternoon had been entirely ordinary. As if nothing had happened. As if everything had. Kyle never posted that video. He posted a different one, 18 minutes long, no pranks, no fake bills, no reactions. Just him, sitting in his car, talking to a camera that wasn't performing for anyone. He talked about Ibrahim. He talked about bread. He talked about what it felt like to be assumed innocent by someone you were trying to humiliate. It became the most watched video he had ever made. Not because it was the most entertaining. Because it was the most true. Ibrahim never knew about the channel or the video or the 47,000 comments that asked, in different ways, the same question: how does a man with nothing give more than a man with everything? The answer, of course, was not complicated. Ibrahim had simply never confused what he owned with who he was. And on a cold Thursday in January, on a Chicago street corner, with half a piece of bread and a prayer rug in 11 years of a life fully lived, he had taught that to a young man with 2 million subscribers who had never, until that afternoon, learned anything from anyone he hadn't chosen to learn from. That is the thing about dignity. It doesn't wait to be filmed. It doesn't perform for cameras. It simply is, steady and unhurried and completely itself, and when you encounter it, really encounter it, you either turn away or you sit down on the cold concrete and let it change you. Kyle sat down. And Ibrahim, who had been sitting in the same spot for 3 years, moved over to make room.